Hi all. Can you please confirm if you are able to hear me? So there's a chat box. You can type in that. All right. Thanks a lot for confirming. All right. So let's get started with the session. Hi, I'm Rahul, and I'll be your instructor for the entire Selenium training. As far as my experience is concerned, I'm having over 13 plus years of experience in software testing itself. I used to work as a test manager with one of the company in Gurgaon in India. So, like as far as automation is concerned, I'm having over 8 to 9 years of experience in automation, where I've worked on various automation tools like Selenium, like UDP, and I've also worked on REST assured web services. I've also worked on the Python part and even the APM for mobile automation testing. So there are various tools that I have already worked on, created a lot of automation frameworks, and handled automation teams as well. So whatever that I have gained from my experience, that is what I teach in this training program. So there are around 30 35 attendees I can see over here, and I can see that some of you are not able to hear me. Okay, guys, just give me a moment. Let me share my screen as well. Okay, are you guys able to see my screen? All right, that's great. Okay, thanks for confirming, guys. All right, so there are some people who have not selected audio as computer audio, might not able to hear me. Let me type and inform them. All right, so let's wait and then we'll get started. Okay, in the meanwhile, if in case you guys have any questions, any queries, you can ask it right now. And by the way, everyone will be on mute because there's a huge audience right now, so we cannot unmute everyone at the same time. So by default, you guys will be on mute. In case you have any queries, any questions, you can directly type it in the chat box. Or in case if you directly want to talk to me, then I can unmute you from here, and you can directly ask what all queries that you have to me, right? So, okay. So, any questions? Anyone of you have? You can type it in the chat box before we get started with the session. Okay. No questions yet. So, I believe most of you are coming from testing background. Anyone from development background as well? Okay, so there are some queries. Are we going to cover APM tool as well? See, we'll be covering basics of APM. The challenging part in APM is the configuration of APM. So that is what I'll be covering it entirely, and I'm going to show you how to run your test on your mobile device as well, the real mobile device. So if you know Selenium, and then APM is the same thing. APM is just a wrapper over your WebDriver API. No, we are not going to cover iOS in this training. For that, I'm going to give you additional access to my complete video library on APM. So once, as I said, once you know Selenium, once your base is built up, you should be able to handle these things by watching the video lectures as well. But this training will be specifically related to the automation concepts. We're gonna start with the UI part, Selenium. Then we'll be having the detailed training on core Java, and then we'll be designing all the major frameworks required for Selenium. So I'll be listing down what all topics that we're gonna cover in some time, and then it will be very much clear to you. Yes, we're gonna do the live projects as well. We'll be working on two live projects. Plus, the additional access that I'm going to give you is on one of my course that I've named it as Automation Architect, Selenium with 7 live projects. So I've actually covered 7 live projects in that course, designing very complex frameworks, which are actually is very much in demand in the industry. So you're gonna gonna get free access to that course as well. Yeah, CI will be covering Jenkins. So we'll be covering Maven, Jenkins, and we'll be covering the TestNG framework in very depth. Right. So let me list down what all topics we are going to cover. So the initial 2 sessions, there are some people in the group right now are already done with the core Java training and now attending the Selenium sessions, and there are many of you who are joining the very first session at the demo session. So for the next 2 session, we'll be covering the basic configuration part of Selenium itself. So we'll be configuring all the browsers. We're going to configure something related to some build tools like Maven, right? We're gonna see what version of Eclipse will should be using, what Java version, how we're gonna download it, and how we're gonna get started with it, right? So then after these two demo sessions, the people who are joining for the first time, we're gonna go for the core Java in-depth training. So we have somewhere around 12 to 14 sessions on core Java that will gonna make you one expert in the basic programming part. See, when we are working in Selenium, it's only the basic Java that is required. There is no advanced Java in Selenium. So the programming part that you may have done in your graduation time, like basic if else loops, like you must have studied basic C++, that is the same concept that we need for automation. So we need only basic programming, right? We are not going to deal with advanced programming part like advanced Java or the number of things in the advanced programming part. Many frameworks are there, we are not going to touch those part. So it's only very basic programming that is required for Selenium, right? And we'll be dealing with all those topics in depth. So if anyone has no prior experience to programming, don't worry about it, because we'll be starting once our Java part is started, we'll be starting with ABC of core Java, right? So need not to worry about the programming part. Okay, any more questions? So then we'll be dealing with latest version of Selenium itself, that is WebDriver at the moment. What is the latest version? Anyone knows? 3.0, exactly. So anyone knows what is the version? What is the build number? So is it 3.0 or 3 dot something? 3.0.1? No. How about others? Anyone in the group? It's not 3.0.1. Okay, guys. So I really want to make these sessions very interactive, right? It's not like it will be a 2 hours of a session, and I should not feel like that only I am talking for the continuously for the 2 hours. I want that you should also participate, right? So that you're really gonna feel great when we're gonna have an environment something like a classroom, not like an online training. So that is what, yeah. So we have 3.141.59 exactly. So the current version of Selenium is 3.141.59. So we call it as Selenium 3, but this is basically the build number 141.59. And what is the main website of Selenium? So chatbox is the one TT that you are right now typing in. So question box is basically the chat box. All right. So which is the main website of Selenium? Selenium. Okay. I can see many of you know the updated website, and many people are saying Selenium HQ, selenium.org. You heard that Selenium 4 is launched. Selenium 4 alpha version is launched. Selenium 4 official version is not yet launched. Selenium 4 is currently in development phase. So selenium.dev is the right answer. So even if you like navigate to seleniumhq.org, it will now take you to selenium.dev. So this is the official website of Selenium. Right. Now, before we get started with Selenium, I would like to ask you what exactly is Selenium? What do you know by Selenium? I mean, what is Selenium? Like we have other automation tools in the market, we have QTP, we have RFT, and number of automation tools are there. But what is Selenium? It's a framework. It is a framework. It is a jar framework, an API that allows web automation, a tool, web-based testing tool, libraries to build framework, and open source automation tool. So most of the time I get an answer something like it's an open source. Open source means no license required to work on Selenium. It's completely free of cost, right? Like with other automation tools like QTP is the biggest competitor of Selenium. So the license of QTP is quite expensive. QTP, we know it as the new name of QTP is UFT, right? So it's a licensed version. We need to purchase the license of UFT in order to do automation of our websites or our applications, right? A company has to pay a heavy amount to purchase the license, whereas the same functionality Selenium provides absolutely free of cost. But there's a difference. That is what we're going to understand. So it's an open source automation tool for what? So what can we automate with Selenium? So what do we automate? Websites, web apps, anything on web applications, exactly. So it's an open source automation tool for web based application testing only, right? Only and only for web based testing. Selenium cannot handle other applications. So what all other applications are there where you may have performed testing on, or you may have opened that application on your laptop? So what all other apps are there apart from web based? We have like web based, then we have desktop based, we have mobile based applications. Apart from web, desktop, mobile, anything else where you may have performed testing on? Could be manual testing. API based, exactly. So API, as in we call it as web services, right? Where we do API testing. We have database applications, right? So these are the major areas where we generally perform testing on. And if I talk about Selenium, Selenium comes over here. So Selenium comes over here only and only for web-based testing. And if I talk about QTP or UFT, it is for web based as well as for desktop based. But Selenium can only automate web based application. And still, you can see the market of Selenium is quite huge. Not just in India, not just in US. Everywhere Selenium is like anything. In case even if you are going for a manual testing opening these days, Selenium is like a prerequisite. So why it is that? Why if we talk about automation, if you search for any automation opening, you'll see that Selenium is like a prerequisite. Because it's an open source. There are many other open source automation tools available in the market. These days you may have heard about something, Protector is there, then Cypress is there, Puppeteer is there, OpenST is there, Water is there, n number of automation tools are there which are open source. But why Selenium is very popular in that? Okay, tell me other features about Selenium. It supports multiple browsers. Okay, so Selenium has got a multi browser support. So what all browsers it supports? It supports all major browsers. So you can work on Chrome, you can work on IE, you can work on Firefox, you can work on Edge, you can work on Safari, Opera. All major browsers are supported by Selenium. It supports multiple languages as well. So what are languages? Languages like Java, like Python, like C Sharp, like Ruby, like JavaScript, PHP, all major languages are supported. Multi-platform, exactly. So multi-platform as in multi-OS, right? So multi-OS, we can run our code on Windows, we can run our code on Linux, on Mac, on iOS, on Android, on Solaris. All major operating system in the world are supported by Selenium, right? So what all components you may have heard about are there in Selenium? Anyone knows what all components are there in Selenium? 5 components. Okay, we have WebDriver. Then TestNG. Is TestNG in Selenium? TestNG is basically a Java framework. It's not a part of Selenium, but we're gonna integrate it with Selenium. So Grid is there. Then we have IDE, RC. So there are 4 major components in Selenium. Out of which market is working on which component? WebDriver, exactly. So RC is gone from the market, right? WebDriver is the one that company is actually working on. WebDriver, and we also use Grid. But what is this IDE? IDE is just a record and play plugin. IDE is also there in the latest version. RC, you're not gonna find it in Selenium 3. After Selenium 2, RC is over, right? There is no RC in Selenium 3. There was RC in Selenium 2 as well, but it was in a deprecated format, right? So I'm going to explain you what all these 4 components are in depth, and I mean after today's session, it will be very much clear to you what all these components are and how we're going to work on Selenium, right? So IDE is like a plugin, a record and play plugin to your browser. Like if you have ever seen other automation tools like QTP, UFT, it has got a very good record and play feature. They've invested their major, they've majorly invested into the record and play part of QTP. But in case of Selenium, the record and play is not at all powerful. So no, there are not 5 components. There are 4 components: ID, RC, WebDriver, and Grid. Right? So there are only 4 components. So ID something looks like this. So this is what ID is. This is ID. This is a plugin to your browser. So at the moment, this plugin is available on Chrome as well as on Firefox. right? If you go down on the website over here, you can see Selenium automates browser. That's it. Selenium is only for web-based testing. And if you go down, you're gonna see these components: WebDriver, ID, grid. You're not gonna see RC over here because RC is gone. There is no RC in latest Selenium, right? So you can download ID directly from here. It is a plugin to your Chrome and an add-on to your Firefox, right? And if you want to see what is the latest version of Selenium, simply click on download, and here you're gonna see the latest stable version is 3.141.59, and Selenium 4 is about to launch in the market, but right now it is currently in the development phase, right? So it's in the alpha version, but the API, the tool is available for testing. You can download and you can perform automation using this component as well, although it is not very stable. But if you go through your course lectures, the video lectures, I've already added some videos on latest Selenium 4 as well, the new functionality that they've introduced in Selenium 4, right? But prior to that, we have to be very strong in what all features we have in Selenium 3, right? So we were talking about ID. It's just a record and play plugin. It's like if I click on record a new test in a new project, it asks me for a project name. Let's say I just name it as Google project, right? And then it asks me to enter the URL. I'll say http google.com, and I'll click on start recording. See, it launches a browser, and over here you can see Selenium IDE is recording. So if I maximize it, and if I, let's say, type Selenium over here, and then I'll click over here, and again I'll perform some action, whatever actions that I have performed so far. If you go to this record and play plugin, you're gonna see all the actions are being recorded. Right, now I can stop it. I'll give this name as Google test, and let's say if you want to run it back, you can simply click on run all test, and it will play back for you. So at times it might break because you may need to add some weight over here, but right now it is working fine, so no need to add weight. See, all everything you can see in green, so the test that we have recorded successfully executed. Now the main purpose of this ID is just to record and play. Normally we do a lot of integrations with Selenium, like some people talking about TestNG, some people talking about Jenkins, Maven. So there are a lot of integration we do with Selenium. And if we are talking about those integrations are done when we are using some programming language. So when we are working with record and play, we cannot do those integrations. So normally what people do, they let's say if I just right click over here, so there's an option that we get to export the test. We just click on export and see there are multiple languages available. I'll select Java JUnit, click on export, and let's say I go to desktop and name it as Google test. Save. So see, a Java file is downloaded. And if I open this file, if I right click, edit it with Notepad, you can see the complete Java coding over here. So normally what people do, they do record and play, they get this script generated, and then they try to do manipulation in this script. But this coding is not at all difficult that you need to get this coding by doing record and play. This is very simple code. This is plain core Java code. There is no advanced Java in this, right? It's just that you need to be familiar with these concepts. Once you are familiar with these concepts, you're never gonna touch this record and play tool, because there are a lot of drawbacks when you're working on Selenium IDE. IDE is not at all used in any project. If you're talking about live projects, only and only WebDriver is the one that market is working on. right? Why ID is not used, what all the drawbacks are there associated with ID, we're going to see all these things in some time, right? But before that, this is all about ID. Now, before we proceed any further, anything else that you may have heard about that we integrate with Selenium? Apart from this IDE, RC, WebDriver, anything else that you have heard? What all things we use with Selenium? Okay, we use Maven, we use POI, TestNG, exactly, Cucumber, Jenkins, Git, extend reports, exactly, Bamboo, Bamboo, Jenkins, one of the same thing. Assure, it is basically Allure report. APM is something for mobile automation, not for web automation. Log4j, okay. Serenity, yes, it's another framework. So there are a lot of things that we integrate, right? Grid is basically a part of Selenium component itself. DOM is something where we locate elements. For parallel execution, yes, we do parallel execution. So what do we use for parallel execution? What is parallel execution, by the way? Parallel execution is, let's say I have written, let's say, 100 test cases. Now I want it to execute on, let's say, IE, to execute it on Firefox, to execute it on Chrome, and I can do it one by one. Instead of doing it one by one, I can run them parallel, so that at the same time all three browsers should launch and the test case should execute on all three browsers at the same time. So this will actually going to save our time. So which component we actually use to do parallel execution? Which component do we use for parallel execution? Great. TestNG, great. Dockers. So do we use grid or Dockers for parallel execution? They are basically used for remote execution of test cases. Right? What is grid? I'm gonna clear it to you in some time. But TestNG is something where we write our test cases. TestNG is basically not a part of Selenium. It's a Java framework where we actually going to convert the scripts that we have written, the code that we have written into test cases. Because what do we want to achieve from automation? At the end, we want to tell our client or our test manager that how many test cases that we have executed, out of that, how many test cases are pass, how many are fail. So if we are looking at this particular code, this is a Selenium code. This is just going to perform the execution. It will gonna launch Google, we're gonna type something, we're gonna hit the buttons, but at the end it will not gonna tell you that how many test cases are passed, how many test cases are failed. That is not a task of Selenium to convert your code into test cases. That task is basically done when you integrate TestNG framework with Selenium. So TestNG will gonna define the flow of your code, basically which code to call in the beginning, which to call at the end, or if you have, let's say, 10 test cases, you want to run them parallelly, TestNG will decide the parallel execution. Grid is not going to decide parallel execution. Grid is for remote distribution of test cases. Remote distribution in the sense, let's say, I'll show it to you with the help of a diagram. So let's say we have a machine, sorry, we have couple of systems over here, that is, you can treat them as laptops or physical machines, right? So this is one machine where we have all our test cases. So whatever that uh, we have automated, I've kept all the test cases over here. Let me change the font size. Right. So this is my main machine. I'll call it as hub. This is a hub machine. Just a moment. There's some issue with my keyboard. Uh, yeah. And these are node machines. What happened? Just give me a moment. Some issue with my keyboard. It's not typing the last row letters. Okay. So this is node 1. This is node 2. And this is node 3. So these are like 3 different machines. And all our test cases are kept over here. On this machine, there's a browser IE. On this machine, there's a browser Chrome. On this machine, we have browser like Firefox. Now I have somewhere around, let's say, 100 test cases over here. Now what I want, at times, in case you have performed manual testing, you must be familiar with browser compatibility testing, right? At times what happens, same sort of test cases we have to execute it on like Firefox, we have to execute it on Chrome, because we never know what version of browser or what browser client might be using, right? Client might gonna use Window as well, right? Client may use Linux as well. Client may be working on Mac as well, right? So not just about the browsers, it's about the operating system as well. Client could use any operating system, but the product that we are working on should work fine on all major operating system and all major browsers. So in order to make sure it works everywhere, we execute the same set of test cases on all different browsers and all different machines. Now just assume, if you're doing this thing manually, if you are manually doing the browser compatibility testing part, then we need to allocate one resource which will going to execute 100 test case on IE on Windows, another resource will work on Linux on Chrome, another resource will work on Mac on Firefox, then another resource who may going to work on different version of Firefox, different version of IE, or maybe some mobile iOS Android, right? Because same test cases, that testing that we have done, the application should work fine on every operating system, because we never know client might gonna use his mobile device, or client might gonna use a laptop, a Mac, or Linux or Windows, but we need to make sure that it should work fine on every operating system. So if we do this thing manually, we have to allocate all our resources for it, so it will gonna take huge time, right? But if I talk about grid automates the entire process. Okay, before that, Lavi Tyagi is not able to hear me. Guys, how about others? Are you able to hear me? Okay, let me check with her what happens, why she's not able to hear me. Lavi, where are you? Give me a moment, guys. Okay, Lavish, you should be able to hear me. Okay, Lavi, please try to reconnect. Okay, could be some issue at her end. Just a moment. Uh, just a moment, guys. Please All right. So yeah, I was talking about grid. As in, we have all test cases over here. Once we run it with grid, grid will actually gonna distribute this test case for parallel testing on remote machines. So these machines are actually connected over the intranet. Like in our organizations, we have like desktops connected to each other. We are able to access different desktops, the files from different desktops as well. So in the same infrastructure, if I start a hub over here, and nodes, like other machines will gonna treat them as nodes. So if I run all my test cases, the complete setup is on a hub. All the Selenium code, all the test cases are kept on hub. Once I run it from hub, it will be distributed onto the remote machines. And if we have defined it from TestNG that executed parallelly, then TestNG will gonna run these test cases parallelly. We can also do it in this way, like we have 100 test cases. I want to run 50 test cases over here, 30 test cases over here, and 20 test cases over here. So maybe 100 test case execution might gonna take somewhere around let's say an hour to execute. If I distribute it like this way, it might gonna take, let's say, 30 minutes to complete the entire execution. Right, so this is what the benefit of grid is. Just for the configuration purpose, we are not going to do any coding in grid. Yeah, Zelium is again a wrapper over grid, Dave. Right, so grid is one of the component through which we can do remote execution of our test cases, and parallel testing is done with the help of TestNG framework. Right, so we're gonna study about grid as well as TestNG framework in depth, and we're gonna see all these things, how we're gonna execute it on our remote machines. Right, so this is what the fourth component. And now let's come back to the first statement that we have written, that what is Selenium. It's an open source automation tool. So the very first thing, as many of you also know, that Selenium is not a tool. Right, tool in the sense we cannot install Selenium. We're not going to get any exe or a setup file for Selenium like we get it for QTP, UFT, where we double click on it, it gets installed on our machine, provided a platform where we can do record and play, scripting. It's nothing like that with Selenium. You'll not be able to see Selenium on your machine. Right? There is no GUI component of Selenium. You cannot install Selenium. You can only configure Selenium. So if Selenium is not a tool, then what exactly is Selenium? It's an API. So it's an API. Okay. What else? Anything else? It's a framework. Okay, Lavi is saying that you are muted by organizer. Yes, I mean, Lavi, you want to talk? Just give me a moment. I'm not able to see. Okay, that's fine. It's a collection of jars. So we can say collection of jars. Anything else? We can call it as a project, right? So all these things are correct for Selenium. It's an API, it's a framework, it's a collection of jars, it's a project, but it's not a tool. Although we have heard about Selenium, that it's like, even on the website you may gonna see that Selenium is collection of tools. Right, collection of tools is basically collection of different libraries, some set of libraries. We can call it a set of libraries. So what is the difference between APM and API? So APM is a tool plus it's a set of API. Now what is an API? This should be the main question. What is an API? If we are saying that Selenium is an API, what is an API? Can anyone tell what is an API? What do you understand by the term API? Collection of classes and interfaces, application programming interface. True, that's a full form. API is a bridge between client and server, allows you to use resources, correct? It is a way to communicate between client and server. Okay, so we, like most of like us, have done API testing manually, right? So you must have heard about a tool called as Postman, right? So many of the time when I ask what is an API, so people try to relate it with API testing, like REST, like SOAP. So that is also an API, but API itself is a huge term. API itself contains a lot of functionality. So what do we have written inside API? What is written inside an API? Code. It's a black for you give input to a particular function. Backend code. It contains libraries. So libraries contains different classes, different methods, functions, complete functionality. It's a complete framework or a complete project that contains a lot of coding part, right? So okay, let's take up a simple example. I believe everyone must have studied some programming language in your graduation time, like C, C++. Is there anyone who has never touched any programming? Because I'll be taking a simple example, but it may gonna involve some coding part as well. So if you know what is class, what is object, that is what I want you to know for today. Okay, Leslie is saying that no idea, but I have seen that you were configuring Eclipse that day, so don't worry about it. Never done programming. Okay. My voice is not clear. So, guys, is my voice not clear? Is there any disturbance in voice? Okay, it's clear. Okay, okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks for confirming. Okay. All right. So, okay, don't worry. If you have done programming a lot year back, you may have studied in your graduation time, and you may have forgot all the concepts. But I mean, it's a very basic part that we are going to cover right now. If you're not familiar with the programming part, don't worry about it, because we'll be covering everything from scratch, right? So prior to that, I mean, what all sessions that we are going to do? I'll be recording all the sessions, and I'll be hosting all these sessions onto our portal, which you can access it from here. Let me show you. So this is selenium-tutorial.com, and here you're gonna see one of the section that says Selenium online training recordings from the live sessions. So here you're gonna see on the top your batch. So this is our previous batch. So right now you can see a lot of core Java sessions are being completed, right? So what topic that we are going to cover, whatever that we are going to cover right now, we have already recorded these in the from the previous batch as well. In case you want to see these recordings, there are some available in free preview as well. But I'll be hosting this recording as well over here. You should, and be forwarding it to you as well, right? But prior to that, if you're not familiar with any programming, you can try going through a couple of core Java sessions from here and in the coming week, right? Before you actually start with the programming part, if you go through these sessions, you should be familiar with basics, what are classes, what are objects, right? Although we'll be covering all these things in the live session as well. But this is, I mean, this is like the overview of Selenium, what we are going to cover it right now. In a 2 hour of a session, I need to explain you everything in the Selenium part that we are going to cover, right? So don't worry about the programming part that I'm going to write right now. If you're not familiar with the programming part, just try to understand the concept. That's it. That is all that is required for today. I'll be doing basic configuration and installation initially, right? So don't worry about it. What do you mean you may have studied in your graduation time? I mean, like most of the audience that have joined today uh, are, I believe, are working as a manual tester, or could be as an automation tester, or maybe from the development background. But like 90% of the audience, I think you all are from the technical background, must have done your masters in computer science or some technical. Where you may have started basic C, C++ during your graduation. That is what like I was talking about, that you may have done in your graduation. And if you have not done, then don't worry about it. Just try to understand the concept, right? Because in 2 hours, it is very difficult to explain what is Selenium, right? There are a lot of components. So for that, I'll be writing a little code. If you're not clear with the coding part, just try to understand the concept behind it. And once we start with this batch, you'll be going through the core Java sessions first, right? And people who have already cleared the core Java sessions, you'll be directly starting with the Selenium part from tomorrow, right? Okay, so we were talking about an API, right? So let's take a basic example. What is an API? What is an API? So let's say this is a very generic example that I generally take. Let's say I'm a Java developer, and I'll gonna I work with some XYZ.com. So you'll tell about installation of Selenium today. Yes, I'll be covering little part of Selenium configuration. I'm gonna show you how you're gonna configure Selenium and launch browsers, right? So don't worry about it. So let's say as a Java developer, I got a task that I need to design a calculator. Now, in a calculator, there are various operations available. I can add something, I can subtract something, divide something, multiply something, and so on. Now, when I have to design a calculator as a developer, I'll be creating a class with the name as calculator. Now, I believe everyone must have heard about there is something called as class, right? So, what do we have inside class? That's fine, Leslie. This is just a demo session. Don't worry about it. Just see what level of programming that we are going to cover. If you're not familiar with the programming part, don't worry about it. So we have functions, we have objects, we have fields, methods, variables, right? A lot of things. Data and functions, state behavior, constructors, n number of things, right? So basically, if I talk about what I'm going to write inside this class is what all functionality that I have to design, I'll be writing these functionalities inside this class in a form of a function, right? Function like a function with a name add. Normally, if you're working in Java, we don't call these things as functions. We call them as methods, right? Functions and methods both are the same thing. But in Java, we call them as methods. So in this add method, I'm gonna write some code which will gonna add some numbers. Similarly, after designing the add method, I'm gonna design a subtract method. And again, I'm gonna write some code, it will gonna subtract some numbers. After subtract, divide, then multiply, and so on. Now let's say I've written the entire code, calculator project is over, right? It's completed. Now I want to test whether this addition method is working fine or not, whether it is adding numbers or not. So what I need to do, I need to call this addition method from this calculator class. Now, how to call a method from a class? How we call a method from a class? Creating an object by object. So what is the syntax? Tell me the syntax. What should I write? How to create an object? So it should be calculator, then obj, then equal to, then new, and calculator. So this is basically the syntax of creating an object. This is how we create an object. I can write anything over here. I can write obj, I can write clc. This is just a user defined name. But this is a syntax. This is a basic syntax how we actually create an object of a class. We'll be studying about these concepts in the Java from scratch. Don't worry about it. Just try to understand the concept if you're not familiar with the programming. So how to call a method now? If I want to call addition, how are we going to call it? Yeah, just a dummy variable, CLC. You can give it a name as ABC, XYZ, CALC dot add. Exactly. This is the code that we're going to write. And whatever that we have written inside addition, if I run this code, that thing will be executed. Right? So just by saying calc.add, everything written inside this addition method will be executed. And same way, I'm going to call other methods as well. I can say calc.subtract, calc.divide, dot multiply, and so on. And one by one, I can call every method of this class. But this is very important that I should be creating an object of a class first. Then only I can call methods from the class. Without creating object, I cannot call it. Right? Now, if I talk about this statement, the one that I'm highlighting right now, what is an object in this statement? Let me increase the font size as well. So what is an object in this statement? Calc, new calculator, just the parenthesis. No. Calc, new is new an object, an instance of calculator class. Okay. Okay, Surbi is not able to chat or talk. Surbi, like there's a question box over there, not the chat box. You simply need to type your question over there. If in case you want to talk, I can unmute you from here. Let me see your name over here. Okay, you should be able to talk to me. Yeah, here itself. Okay, we have two Surbis over here. Just got confused. Yeah. So you can talk now. Just a moment. Okay. Sorry, I was my speakers was on mute. Yeah. So can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
All right. Okay, so you can be self-muted, Surbi, and whenever you have any questions, queries, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Do you see what I'm typing? Tosh, yeah. Sure. Okay. So the correct answer is not calculator, not calci, not new, not this parenthesis. An object is always created whenever we say new calculator. Although in this calculator, this part is something which is actually a constructor. Now, what is a constructor? We're going to look at it in some time. But this is what is creating an object. Normally, I've seen 90% of the people, they say calci is an object. Now, calci is not an object. It's just a reference variable, a variable that we have created, right? A name that we have defined. We can define any name over here. We can simply say ABC as well, XYZ as well. This is your class, but we call it as a type, right? Type as in, you may have heard about data types, similar to that only, right? So, but what I've done right now, this is a plain Java code that I've written in Notepad. Now, time have changed. There are a lot of editors available in the market. Previously, we used to write it in Notepad. We used to do Java programming in Notepad, but that was way long back. Now, there are many editors available in the market with artificial intelligence. If you're not good in coding, these editors helps us a lot while writing code. If let's say there are hundreds of methods inside this class, we cannot learn all 100 methods. We simply put a dot over here and it will show us a list of all the methods and we can pick the methods from there. So some editors are paid, some are open source, like IntelliJ is there, NetBeans is there, Eclipse is there. Eclipse is one of the most popular editor, very widely used, completely open source as well. So we will be using Eclipse in our course itself. Eclipse as in Eclipse IDE. IDE is not Selenium IDE, it's an integrated development environment. But there is a prerequisite before we get started with Eclipse. The prerequisite is that you need to have Java installed on your machine. Java as in JDK, Java Development Kit. Anything 1.8 or above is supported by Selenium. Right, you can have a latest Java installed as well. Latest is, I guess, Java 14. But at the moment, I don't recommend you to use Java 14 because you might gonna face some challenges later on when you're gonna do some integration with Selenium. Right, the most stable version is still JDK 1.8. I would recommend you to go with this version. And which version of Eclipse to use? Eclipse, you should be using the latest one. Now, I'm going to show you how you're going to configure all these things. So first, let's start with the Java part. So you need to go to Google and simply type download JDK 1.8. So Java is by Oracle now. You need to go to the very first link. And over here, you're going to see a lot of components. Let it completely download. Just a moment. Okay, so you can see a lot of components of Java over here, right? Where it is available for Linux, it is available for Mac, Solaris, Windows. Windows 86 is for Windows 64-bit. 86 is for 32-bit, 64 is for 64-bit. So based on your operating system, you actually need to download this exe file. Java comes as a exe file, right? It's like you simply download it, double click and install. That's it. Apart from Notepad, uh, sorry, Tosh, I didn't get your question. Apart from Notepad, now good. I didn't get your question. Okay, that's fine. All right. So see, now the only challenge that you're gonna get while downloading Java is when you click on this, it will take you to the Oracle official page where you need to actually perform a sign up. So you're gonna get a sign up screen over here. So you need to like, just a moment. The interface is little broken, I guess. Let me open it in incognito mode. So when you click on this, see, I'm on a Windows 64-bit machine. You can check it from here. You just need to right click on your PC, go to properties, and here you're going to see what is your system type. It is 64-bit or 32-bit. Based on that, you need to click on that particular version, right? I've actually like in the video recordings, I've actually mentioned the detailed steps to be performed for Mac operating system as well, right? So in case if anyone is having Mac, then I can assist you with configuring Mac as well. So some issue with this website on my machine at the moment, I guess it's not loading. But here you're gonna see a sign up window. Once you sign up, you should be able to download this exe file. You guys can try it on your machine. You just gonna get this exe file with the name JDK. Right, I may have downloaded it. Let's see if it is there on my machine. I can show it to you. So you go to D drive, softwares. Yeah, this is how the Java is gonna look like. There's somewhere around a 200 MB, 198 MB application. Installation is quite simple. Just double click on it, next, and Java gets installed on your machine. That is the only stuff you need to do. Once Java is installed, you're gonna find Java inside C drive program files on Windows. You'll see a folder of Java over here. If you open this folder, you'll find something called as JDK and JRE. JDK stands for Java Development Kit and JRE is Java Runtime Environment. Now, what is the difference in JDK and JRE? Don't worry about it. In the very first session of Core Java, we'll be covering it, right? But at the moment, you just need to have these two things on your machine. Normally, you could get Java by simply typing download Java as well. So you can see this is the website where you can get Java software available. But if you download it from here, let's say from this button, then you may gonna get only JRE. JRE is like Java runtime environment. JRE is actually required to run your Java code. But in case you want to do some development, some coding part as well, then you would be needing JDK. That is Java Development Kit. And if you install JDK directly, then JRE will come along with JDK. So you need not to separately download JRE. That is the reason I downloaded JDK and I got JRE as well along with it for the coding part and the execution part as well. Right? Rest will be covering about details of JDK, JRE, JVM in the core Java session. You need not to worry about those things right now. And once Java is downloaded, you need to do a little configuration as well. So that configuration I'm not going to touch right now. We'll be doing that configuration in our tomorrow's session. Right? What all environment, there are some environment variables that we need to set up to support Java that I'm going to show you tomorrow, because it may going to take a longer time if we start doing those configuration. I'm going to show you the Selenium part first. Right? So once we are done with this, the next thing is to download Eclipse, because till the time Java is not there on your machine, Eclipse will not gonna work. And which version of Eclipse to download? Simply type download Eclipse and just check the very first link over here. Yes, you can use IntelliJ as well. That's just an editor. Any editor that supports Java, you can use editor. If you are more comfortable in using IntelliJ, you can work with IntelliJ. right? So programming will gonna remain same, be it IntelliJ, be it Eclipse. And see, the latest one is 2020-03. So don't download it from here. Go to download packages. Eclipse has a lot of components, right? Eclipse is not only used for Java programming. You can write C, C++ as well. You can write PHP code as well, JavaScript, Python, Perl, Ruby. A lot of languages are supported by Eclipse. We need a very basic component, that is Eclipse IDE for enterprise Java developer. This is the component that we are looking for, because we need Eclipse for very basic core Java programming. So download it based on your Windows, Mac, or Linux operating system. Mine is Windows 64-bit, so I'm getting option of 64-bit. If yours is 32-bit, you're gonna see the options of 32-bit over here. And see, when I'm doing a mouse over on my status bar, it is actually showing a zip file. See, Eclipse JEE 2020-03 encapsulation and the zip format. So once you download it, it's somewhere around 300 MB file, and you're gonna get a zip file for Eclipse. Okay, some question over here. I have Eclipse and codes in it. If I install the latest, nothing will be deleted. Don't worry about it. That will remain in a separate environment. You can import all the code in this environment as well. So don't worry about it. This will be complete separate Eclipse to what you have downloaded earlier, right? But it is always recommended to use the latest Eclipse. Otherwise, you may gonna face some issues in installing some plugins of TestNG or other plugins which might not gonna match the older versions. So in case if you're getting started, download the latest one. So I've already downloaded this. I got a zip file, something like this. Uh, a zip file of Eclipse will gonna look like this. This is the zip file. So somewhere around 352 MB. So I'm using one version prior to the current version. You should be downloading the latest one. And once you unzip it, you're gonna see Eclipse folder over here. Open this. So no installer over here. This is the application. Double click on it and it will gonna launch Eclipse. That's it. So very first thing, it will gonna ask you to select a directory as a workspace. Workspace is basically a location where you'll be writing all your project code. Any coding will gonna store the same coding will gonna store at some location. That is what your workspace is. Next time when you want to refer the same project again, you just need to give the location of that project over here. So I'm gonna, let's say, name this workspace with the current batch name. I'm gonna name it as uh, batch. Today is 2nd May 2020. Right. So with the current batch name, I'm gonna create a new workspace. Can we use two ID in one machine? You can have n number of IDs. There's no restriction, right? And now if I go to this location where I've created the workspace, D drive workspaces, you're gonna see your batch. If I go over here, the one that we have created just now is batch 2nd May 2020. Any code that we're going to write will get stored at this location. Next time you want to refer the same project, copy this path. When you launch Eclipse, just give it in your workspace. That's it. So once Eclipse is launched, it will going to show you a welcome screen like this. Just close this welcome screen, and this is what area that you're going to see over here. This center section is where you'll be doing the coding part. Down over here, this is where you'll be seeing the output of your code, the results in the console window. And here you get some options of creating a new project, adding classes, adding interfaces, adding libraries, right? Anything you want to do it in your project, any external library you want to add, you'll be doing it from this project explorer section. We'll be talking about more Eclipse features as soon as we proceed the course. But right now I'm going to create a simple Java project. And you need to click over here, create a Java project from here. This is basically JPA project. So J Java should be from here. Just a moment. There are some feature changes over here. Simply click on create project. Don't select any other project from here. And here you're gonna find Java project. Generally, we create Maven projects. I'm habitual of creating Maven project. Simple Java project we only create when we are working on basic core Java. Right. So here you click on create project and you get an option of Java project. Click on next, give a project name, could be any name. Let's say we are creating a calculator project, so I'll name it as calci project and click on finish. Click on open and your Java project is created. If I open this project, you're going to see two things over here. One is your src folder. Src folder is where you'll be creating your classes, interfaces, adding code, doing a lot of stuff related to programming over here. And the other thing that you can see is JRE system library. If I open this, you're going to see some files with the extension jar. Jar is basically Java archive. These files contains some inbuilt classes of core Java that you may need in your project. Now, normally what happen if you have ever worked on C, C++, you might be knowing that we use some header statements like import conio.h, studio.h, and number of other things when we work on C, C++. Similarly, if we use core Java, if we work on core Java notepad, we need to write all these things, all the import statement manually. What are libraries that we'll be using? We need to add them manually. So in Java, it goes like import java dot util dot star import java dot n number of other libraries in even in order to access the internal classes. But when you're working on Eclipse, you need not to do all these things. All the internal classes will be handled automatically, because once you create a Java project, Java has already binded the internal libraries to your project. Your task is just to create your own class. So you'll simply right click over here, say new, and click on class. And here it asks you for a class name. Give any name. I'll name it as calculator, but it should start from a capital letter. Class name always starts from a capital letter. So I've given it as capital C. And check this thing, public static void main. Click on finish. So here you're going to see a sample code over here. Let me increase the font size. Now, this whole thing is basically a class. And this thing is called as a method, which is inside a class. A method will always be inside some class in Java. Right? By default, this method is named as main. This is the first point of execution in Java. Anything that you want to execute in Java should be written inside this block. These are comments. You can remove it. Along with this, you can see something in reddish color and something in black color. So all these reddish color stuff are predefined keywords. There is some meaning to it, but we need not to worry about it right now. What is public, what is static, what is void, don't worry about it right now. We have everything covered in the core Java lectures. So something public, private, protected, these things are called as access modifiers. Then we have static, non-static members. We have void, int, string as a return type to a method. This whole thing is a method. If you're not familiar with these things, don't worry about it. We'll be covering these things in core Java. For the time being, I'll be writing very basic code, and that I have to do because I need to make you understand what is Selenium, why we need to write this code. Because Selenium is not a tool. Selenium is just the coding part, and that too very basic coding, not very advanced level of coding. right? So as I said, initially we were designing something called as calculator. As I said, I was working as a Java developer and I have to design calculator. So I've created a couple of methods like this over here, right? Same thing, I'm gonna do it in this class as well. But before this, I want to print something. Like when we start with the programming, the very first thing we do is we print something. Like if I talk about C, how many know how to print in C? How to print in C, guys? Anyone? Printf, exactly. How, not system out println. How to how to print in C++? Okay. C out, exactly. And now Java. How to print in Java? System out println. Right. I can see most of you know how to print in Java. So the very first statement in order to print anything in Java, we do something like system out println. And inside this, we're gonna write our code in double quotes. I'm gonna write, let's say, hello world, right? The very first program of any programming language is to print hello world. There's the run button. If I click on this, you're gonna see that hello world is executed over here, right? But we're not here to print hello world. We are here to implement calculator. As a developer, I am implementing a calculator. There are various methods, function inside calculator like addition, division, subtraction, all that I want to design over here. So I'll be creating a method, a function, something like this: public void add. Don't worry about what public void is. Just think this is a method that I've created. Add, like the way we did it in Notepad. And inside it, I'm gonna write some code which will gonna add some numbers. But we have not studied the programming part right now. So I'm just going to print something that say, just a moment, uh, adding some issue with my keyboard, some numbers. Yeah. So same way, I'm gonna write more methods. I'll just copy it, paste, paste. I'm gonna create some more methods. After add, I'm gonna say subtract. This should be subtracting some numbers. Then divide. This should be dividing some numbers. And then multiply. And this should multiply some numbers. And so on. Right. Let's say I've created the entire methods that I need in this calculator project. Now I want to check whether this addition method is working fine or not. So how will I check it? I need to create an object of this class. How to create an object? That we have already seen by this statement, right? So I'm just going to copy this and paste it over here. And we got no errors. Errors in the sense, if I do any mistake over here, if I write it as calculators, you're going to see that this is highlighted with some red line over here. So Eclipse will gonna give you suggestions. If there are any errors, mouse over onto it. Eclipse says that calculators cannot be resolved to a type. See, this thing is called as a type. I told you this thing is a type. This is your class name as well as it is called as a type. So Eclipse is giving you some quick fixes. Create class calculators. But why do we create calculators when we have a class with the name calculator? So it says change to calculator. If I click on this, it will going to change it to calculator. right? Now, if I say calc dot, see, it shows me a list of all the methods that I've created. I've created add. If I select it, save it, click on the run button, you're gonna see adding some numbers is executed. Same way, if I say calc dot subtract, calc dot divide, calc dot multiply. See, one by one I can call all the methods. And if I again run it, you're gonna see everything executed, right? Everything is successfully executed. Now I have one method which has the same name as of the class name. What we call it as? There's one more method, right? So this is having a same name as of the class name. What do we call it as? Constructor. Exactly. So what are constructors? We have constructors in C++ as well. What are constructors? Anyone? What are constructors? Used to initialize values. They are used to create the object. Special functions with same name as of the class name. Same as class name. Allocate space. Mhm. Used to initiate the instance variable. So all these statements are correct. So constructors, for the time being, people who are not aware of what constructors are, they look like a method only. It's like the method itself. Like I've created add, like created subtract, but you won't find anything like void written over here, right? Just the method name. That's it. But this name is same like a class name. See, Java is a case sensitive language. When we are talking about, there's something called as camel casing in Java, where I said whenever we create a class name, it should always be in a capital letter. Let's say I have a class with a name the dark night. So see, there are three words in this class name. If I read it as it is not very readable. To make it readable, if it is a class name, I'll start it with a capital letter. So I'm gonna start it something like with a capital T, the dark. Any joining word should be in caps, and then okay. So I have an issue with this N letter on my keyboard. So it is printing small values, but not printing the capital value. That's weird. Yeah. Okay. So the dark night, right? And if it is a method name will look something, will gonna start from a small letter. Any joining should be in capital letter. uh, so that's an issue with n letter itself, right? So this is what is camel casing. See, so now if you're gonna read any developer's project, you should be able to know whether this is a class or this is a method, because method name will always going to start from a small letter. If you talk about your basic core Java itself, if you see over here, the main method start from a small letter, right? So classes in Java, they start from a capital letter, and methods, they start from a small letter. Now it's not like if I create this with a capital A, it will going to throw me any error. It will not going to throw any error. But these are some of the best practices, some coding standards that we need to follow, that we need to start the method name with a small letter and class name with a capital letter. That is what camel casing is all about. So throughout our training, we'll be writing the code in camel casing format itself. right? Now let's come back to the constructor, which is like a method having the same name as of the class name. Now whatever that code I've written over here, I can write the code inside this method as well. I can simply copy this and paste it over here as well, and something I'll say calling constructor. See, this is like a method only. Now if I want to call this method, how will I call it? Like I called calci.add, calci.subtract. Shall I say calci.calculator? See, I'm not getting it in the list. There is no calculator showing in the list. There's addition showing, there's subtraction showing, but calculator is not showing. So how are we gonna call it? How are we gonna call this calculator method? It's called while creating object. How about others? How are we gonna call this calculator? It's automatic. Okay. Anyone else? So see, constructor is not a method. It is called automatically as soon as you create an object of a class. Exactly, implicitly called by JVM. Right. I don't want to use JVM term over here so that other people might not gonna get confused who are new to programming. But this is like a method which gets automatically executed as soon as you create an object of a class. Right, you need not to call it explicitly like we are calling add, subtract, divide, multiply. We need not to call this constructor separately. It gets executed automatically when you create an object. Now where we are creating an object, we are creating an object over here. Even if you don't call these methods, I'll just delete them. Here we are creating an object, right? If I run this now, you'll see the very first thing that is executed is constructor. It is called automatically, right? You need not to call it explicitly. Now if I talk about this statement, as I said, an object is created and a constructor is called. So we were discussing about what is an object in this statement. Many people says calc is an object. Some people says new calculator is an object, and I said that calc is not an object, new calculator is an object. But let's assume new calculator is not an object. I'll remove it from here. I'll just delete it for the timing. See, still it is a valid statement. There are no errors, right? There are no errors in the statement. It's a correct statement. Now if this is an object and if I run this code, this constructor should be called automatically, right? Because if this is a constructor, if this is like an object, as soon as we create an object, the very first thing that is called is a constructor. So if I run this, it will gonna call the constructor. Tell me whether the constructor will be called or not if I run it. Whether it will gonna call the constructor? No, exactly. So if you run it, if I just simply click on run, see nothing happening. Now what I'll do, I'll just delete this part. Still it is a valid statement. No errors. Now if I run this thing right now, will the constructor be called or not? Yes. So everyone, yes? Exactly. So if I run this thing right now, you're gonna see that the constructor is called. So if this thing is creating an object and a constructor is called using this thing itself, then why we need calculator calc? Why this thing is required? The one that is highlighted. Why we need this thing? We can remove it. What is the purpose of having that thing? Reference variable. Why we need reference variable? To call methods from the class. Exactly. So it means if I don't have that calc, I cannot say calci.add, calci.subtract, calci.divide, or can I? To ensure we are calling from the class. So do we need calci to call methods from the class? Or can I still call the methods without that calci variable as well? Can we call methods without calci variable? Yes, no. How about others? No. So a lot of no's are there. Okay, confused. That's fine. Yes, we can still call. So the question was, can we call methods without that variable calci? We can still call it. Yes, using the class name, we can call when the methods are static. Right now, I'm talking about this simple method. I'm not talking about static, non-static. Right? I'm talking about the object. So we can still call the method by simply saying new calculator dot add. See, I'm able to call the addition method. If I run this, you're gonna see that adding some numbers is executed. Now, what if I want to call subtract? I again need to write the same statement. New calculator dot subtract. New calculator dot divide. Sorry, dot uh, divide. New calculator dot multiply. And if I run this thing now, you'll see what happens. See, constructor is called 4 times. Although all methods are called, but constructors are called 4 times. Constructor is called 4 times. It means 4 objects are created in the memory. We cannot directly call addition method. See, it will gonna throw an error. If I simply say add, it will throw an error. It will not be called directly. If you want to make this work, we can make this work as well. But for that, we need to change the method to static. So I'm not talking about static, non-static right now. Right? So if I call it like this way, then while running the code, you're going to see that the constructor will be called 4 times. And if there are 100 methods inside this class, and if we do it like this way, then hundreds of objects will be created. So that is what we don't want. Exactly. More memory consumption will be there. So we don't do it in this way. So that is the reason what we do, wherever the object is created in the memory, we store the reference of that object into a variable. Variable could be uh, something like ABCD. Could be anything. I can say ABCD equal to. So I'm storing the address wherever the object is created in a memory in some variable. And we call this variable as a reference variable. This is actually referencing to the address of that object. So we can give any name over here, not just ABCD. We generally give it a meaningful name, so we call it as calc. And in Java, every variable has some type. And then if I'm storing a value 100 in a variable, let's say, let me call this variable as value equal to 100. So what will be the type of this variable? Int. Exactly. It will always be int, right? I can only write int over here. It cannot be string. It cannot be boolean, right? I cannot write string over here. Otherwise, it will going to throw me an exception, some error over here, right? So error, the type mismatch cannot convert from int to string. In case you want string to use over here, you have to keep it inside double quotes. So string is always inside double quotes. Let's say instead of 100, I'll write hello over here. Can I store it inside int? Can I write int over here? It will not gonna work because this is not a number. Int is only used for numeric values, right? So what all values you have, the data type will be corresponding to that value only. If it is in double quotes, it will always be string. And now if I talk about string, what is string? What is string in Java? Okay. How about others? What is string? Data type. How about others? Set of alphanumeric characters. Data type characters. Object, class. So string is actually a class in Java. It's an internal class in Java. Right? See, if you mouse over onto the string itself will gonna tell you what is string. The string class. String is actually a class. Now, if this is a class, then what is value? What is value for string? Object? No, not object. Object reference. Right? It's a reference variable. With this reference variable, if you say value dot, you're gonna see all the methods which are inside string class. This is the same thing we were doing with calculator, calc dot. It shows all the methods of calculator class. And same way with string, if I say value dot, it will show me all the methods of string class. See, all the methods have written, you can see written string over here, right? So all these methods belong to string class. String is an internal Java class. And same way, if were storing this, we were storing this value into string, right? So the type, this is a class and this is also a type, right? Same way, now I am not storing this value, I'm storing this value into a variable. So what will be the type of this variable? Will it be int? I cannot store it inside int, so it will gonna give me an error. I cannot store it inside string. It has to be of the same class type. That is the reason we write calculator calc equal to new calculator, where calculator is a type, calc is just a variable, a reference variable. This is basically an assignment operator equal to, which is assigning this value to this variable. And this is a keyword. This is a constructor, right? How this is a constructor, we're going to have a detailed discussion on it right later on. And this whole thing create an object in the memory, right? We'll be discussing these topics again, so don't worry about it if you are very new to programming, right? I know people who don't know ABC of Java, this thing might gonna be little complex for these people, right? For those people, but don't worry about it, right? We'll be covering ABC of Java. We're gonna start with ABC of Java once your batch is started, right? So now if I say calc dot, you should be able to call all methods from this class one by one. Calc dot add, calc dot divide, calc dot multiply, calc dot subtract. And if you run it now, you're gonna see that only one object is created and all the methods are referred from the same object reference, right? So this is very basic part. What classes, how we call methods, how we're going to create object. But let's say initially when we started, I said that I was working as a developer. I have to create a calculator. Let's assume we have created the entire calculator project. And inside addition method, I've written some 400-500 lines of code with very complex logic. Now, what I want next time, if let's say my colleague, he wants to add something, he should not rewrite the entire method again. Or not even my colleague, if any XYZ person Maybe he's sitting in US, he's sitting in India, he's sitting in Australia, anywhere, any part of the world. If he wants to do addition, subtraction, I want that he should not recreate the entire functionality. He can access my methods. He can access the code that I've written. And I'll not be charging for that code. I want to launch my project as an open source project. This calculator project as an open source project. I want anyone should be able to access these functionality free of cost. Open source does not only means that it is free of cost. It is free of cost plus anyone who is, let's say, who is from the development end can even contribute into the development of this project. So open source means free of cost plus anyone can contribute into the development. Let's say if some developer comes in who likes my project and uh, he say that he has shown his interest in designing some functionalities into this project. Maybe he wants to add some functionality like calculating percentage, square root. Then he is most welcome. And if someone wants to use this functionality, he can use it free of cost. That is what open source means. Now, how to launch it in market? What I'll do, I'll just right click on my project and say export. We'll see an option of export over here. We'll go to Java, click jar file, click next, and give it some name. I'll name it as calculator. I'll give some version 1.0, the very first version of my project, and say .jar. Jar is Java archive. And I'll save it to, let's say, my desktop. Save, finish. Okay. Now, if I go back to the desktop, you're going to see a jar file generated over here, right? Now, it's not like if I double click on this jar file, it will going to install calculator on my machine. It is not going to do any installation on my machine. With the help of this jar file, I'll only going to come to know what all classes are there inside this project, what all methods that are used inside this project. Even if a developer has not shared the code, I'll not be able to see the code. But normally in an open source project, people give away their code as well. Because open source means anyone can contribute into the development part as well. Now I want that anyone who wants to access my project should get this jar file. So what I'll do, I'll upload this jar file on my website. Because next time a person sitting in US, sitting in Australia want to access my project, he can go to my website, download this jar file and access the functionality. So once this project is developed, what I did, I left this organization. I'm going to close this project now. So let me close this project, close project. Now I joined another company. Again, as a Java developer, I joined American Express, right? So they are, let's say, in the banking domain. They have their own project implemented in Java itself. Let's assume. So I'm gonna create a new project. I'll say new Java project. Name it as MX and click on finish. So I was hired in between of that project. They were having a lot of functionalities already implemented in that project. There was one class that they have implemented with the name as banking, right? Click on finish. Let me add a main method as well to it. Main, just a moment. Some shortcuts are not working. Just a moment, guys. Some issue with my keyboard. Yeah. Oops. Yeah, I'll select it from here. Yeah. Okay, the shortcut to type main method is when you just need to write main over here, say control space and enter, right? So I have some issues in my letter n and space on my keyboard. I'll gonna fix it soon, right? So now in this banking project, let's assume there were a lot of methods already. Functionality was there where there's a method called as profit. So they were having a method with the name as profit. There was one method already implemented with the name as loss, right? And there was so many functionality. And I was hired in between of this project, right? So they actually have given me some functionality. I think the screen is stuck. Guys, are you able to see these methods? Guys, can you confirm me? Are you able to see this profit loss method over here? Just a moment. All right. Thanks for confirming. Yeah. Okay. So I was talking about, let's say we have, like I joined this organization where there's a banking domain and all the methods and functionalities were already there, right? They asked me to implement some functionality that could add salaries for a number of employees. So what I did, I created a method, something like a method with the name add over here itself. So I'll say public void add. So I need to design this method over here that will add salaries for a number of employees. Now, if I talk about the functionality of this method, let's assume it has the same functionality that I've designed in my calculator project. Now, there are two ways to design it. Either I should start writing the entire code again, but it was like 500 lines of code with very complex logic. I can write it again, but it may take me some days to finish it. Now, why to put that unnecessary effort again when we have that functionality already written in one of my previous project in the calculator project? Same functionality is there. Instead of redesigning it, what I did, I went to their website and I downloaded that jar file of the calculator project. How? I simply downloaded, I got this jar file, and then I've right clicked on my project, gone to build path, just follow these steps, right click on your project, go to build path, and click on add external archives and select this jar file and click on open. So see, the jar is added over here. Now if you open this jar file, you should be able to see the calculator class which was there in the previous project. And if you expand it, you should be able to see all the methods as well, right? But you're not able to see the code written inside that addition method. But we are not worried about the code. We want to access the functionality, right? So what I'll do, this calculator class, if I'm able to see this class over here, I should be able to call this class as well over here. I can simply go over here and say calculator calc equal to new calculator, and see, I am able to call it without any issues, and it's not throwing me any error, right? Because Eclipse is able to understand what this calculator is with the help of this jar file. If I remove this jar file, I'll go to build path, remove it. See, now Eclipse is throwing some error. If you mouse over, Eclipse will give you suggestions. Eclipse is saying that create a class calculator. Now, why to create a class? This is already there in the previous project. So with the help of that jar file only, Eclipse was able to understand that what calculator is. Calculator is a class, right? So what we need to do, we again need to add that jar file, because calculator is not inside this MX project. It was there inside a different project. So we have added that third party project over here. Now I can access the functionality from this class. How? By simply saying calci dot add. See, I'm able to call the add method. Let's change this name to add salary. Now I want to call this add salary. How to call add salary? For that, I need to create an object of banking class. How? By simply saying banking b equal to new banking, right? And then we say b dot, I get add salary. And if I save this, run this, you're gonna see the same functionality is executed over here without rewriting the code. Without rewriting the code, with the help of this jar file, I've achieved the same functionality. I need not to write all 500 lines of code which was there in the addition method, because that was already written and I have just accessed the functionality with the help of this jar file and implemented the same in my project. So if I talk about this jar file, this is what an API is. This is an API to American Express project. And if you're talking about Selenium, Selenium is one of the same thing. Selenium is just a third party project which is developed, which contains a lot of classes, lot of methods, library, which you will be calling it inside your own project and you'll be automating your website. So if you want to call Selenium over here, you can do that thing as well. In the same project, you can call Selenium. Okay, Ankush, I'll gonna show it to you. Don't worry. I'll show it to you practically. The way that we have added this calculator jar, because calculator was one of the project, a third party project. Same way, Selenium is also a third party project, which is available on a different website over here. Selenium.dev. And if I go to downloads, I'm gonna see the latest version of Selenium over here. I can download Selenium from here. See what we get if I download this. If I click on this, see, it's downloading one single jar file for me. Right? It's just a 10 MB jar file. So what I'll do, I'll just copy this or leave it as it is. It should be inside my downloads. I'll see the folder. It is inside my downloads. So I'll copy the location. I'll go to Eclipse. Right click on my project. Go to build path. Add external archive. Go to the location where I downloaded this jar. This is the jar file and open it. That's it. Like the way I have added calculator jar, I have to add Selenium jar. That's it. This is the only configuration that is required for Selenium. You need JDK, you need Eclipse, you need this jar. That's it. And now you should be able to automate any website in the world easily. Right? So let's see. Let's try to automate some part. Let's try to launch a browser. How are we going to launch a browser? See, in calculator, we have in calculator jar file, there was a class called as calculator. We have created an object of that class. In Selenium, we have a different class with the name Chrome driver. I'm going to create an object of that class. How? Same process like we did for calculator. Calculator calc equal to new calculator. Same thing I'm going to do with Chrome driver equal to new Chrome driver. Right? See, I'm not getting any errors. So initially you called this calculator calc equal to new calculator. Now I've called Chrome driver equal to new Chrome driver. This class This calculator class was inside calculator jar, and this Chrome driver class is there inside the Selenium jar. That is the only thing that I did. So it's the same basic core Java process. And now if I run this, it should actually launch a browser. But before launching a browser, Selenium will directly not gonna talk to the browser. Browser will not gonna allow this. There is some authentication that Selenium has to do with that browser. The mode of communication, and that is done with the help of API that browser vendor will gonna provide. So browser vendor for Chrome, who is the vendor? Who has designed Chrome? Google, right? So Google will gonna provide some API, something which will help building up communication with the Chrome browser, because Chrome is not a property of Selenium, right? So Selenium will not gonna directly talk to Chrome browser. There has to be some mode of communication that we're gonna understand once we're gonna study about the architecture of WebDriver. I'm gonna show you what that API is, how the communication is done. Once I'm gonna explain you the architecture of WebDriver. But for the timing, what you need to do, that API we need to get it by from Google, and they have already added links over here. So see, if you go down on this website, you're gonna see a section called as browsers. If you open it, see Firefox, IE, Safari, Opera, Chrome, Edge. Chrome driver is supported by Chromium project. This is by Google itself. If you click on documentation, it will take you to site.google.com, right? And here you need to download this stable release. Now there are a lot of releases available over here, 81, 83. These releases depends on the browser version that you're using. So if I go to settings, and if I go to about Chrome, I'm using 81.0.40. So based on this, I need to search it on this. See 81.0.40. I'll download it. I got it for Linux, Mac, Windows. I want it for Windows. This is 32-bit, but it will work for 64-bit as well. Click on this and download it. See, I've already downloaded it. So if I open this, this is a zip file that you're gonna get. Extract this zip. So I'll extract it here. And this will come like this. See, this is an application. You just need to copy this application. That's it. Copy it, go to Eclipse, right click on your project, paste it. That's it. That is the only stuff you need to do. So we got this another API that communicates with the browser from Google. So we downloaded it and we added it. Now if I run this, see what will happen. A Chrome browser is launched. See? Just by creating an object of Chrome driver class and by clicking on run button, it launches a browser. But there must be some code written for launching this browser. Maybe the developer who has designed this Chrome driver class may have written 100 lines of code to launch this browser. Although we are not worried about it because we are using Selenium as a tester. We are not developing Selenium. But someone might have written some code which is actually launching this browser. So where is that code written to launch the browser? Where is that code written? Anyone? Where is that code written? Selenium server? Server means the jar file that we have added, right? like over here. The code is written inside this jar, right? So where inside this jar? Where inside this jar file? Where that code is written? Package? Chrome driver class. Exactly. The code is written inside Chrome driver class because we are calling Chrome driver class, right? Now, where inside that class? Where inside Chrome driver class? Correct. How about others? Where inside Chrome driver class? I want to see what all from others as well. Exactly. Method. Have we called any method? In some method. Which method have we called so far? Have we called any method of Chrome driver class? No. Then where the code written? Exactly. Constructor. So as soon as you create an object of a class, the very first thing that is called is a constructor, right? Even if you don't write this, if you simply write this, new Chrome driver, that's it. Save it and run it. A constructor will be called and a code is written inside that constructor to launch the browser, right? Now, in case you want to access other functionality, you want to do navigation, you want to print the title of the page, then you need to create a reference over here. That is this driver. And now if you do driver dot, you should be able to see list of all the methods inside this class. One of the method you'll be calling is driver dot get. So get, it asks you for a URL and in which format? String format. String means double quotes. So anything that you write in double quotes, like the URL http google.com, save it, run it, it will gonna again launch the browser and we're gonna navigate to google.com, right? And maybe your very first test is to print the title of the page. So the title is Google. So let's see if we have any method for that. So if I say driver dot, I get a method get title, a simple straightforward method. But this will not gonna print the title. This will only gonna get the title because printing task is not of Selenium. Printing task is of Java. And how to print in Java? We need to write system dot out dot println, and we need to put this thing inside system out println. Save it, run it again, and this time it will navigate to Google and we're gonna get the title of Google as well. That is Google. So that is what Selenium is. And that is how you'll be working on Selenium. And this code is not at all complex. It's just that many people are not familiar with Java at the moment. But once your Java concepts are clear, you should be able to write it easily. And if you are able to write it easily, you'll not be using record and play to get this code. Right? So that is what Selenium is. Selenium is not a tool that you need to, let's say, install on your machine. It's just a jar file, it's an API. Okay, how I have loaded the Chrome driver exe is I just downloaded, I just copied it from here, just Control C and right click on your project and paste it. That's it. That is the only thing that I did. There are a lot of ways to launch the browser, a lot of ways to call this executable file. We're gonna study about it later on, but this is the simple way right now. Right? So that's what your Selenium is. Now, there are a lot of other topics yet to be covered in the demo session, but I think we're already running out of time. It's already 11, like 11, 8 IST. right? So we're gonna cover those topics like in our tomorrow session. So I'm going to explain you like what all things can be integrated with Selenium. I'm going to show you some other components, and even I'm going to show you one example on mobile execution as well. So you're going to see that it is very similar to Selenium. So we'll be executing the stuff on real mobile device as well in our tomorrow's session, right? So tomorrow will be the other part of the demo session, and then after that your Java sessions will be started, and students who have finished with their Java sessions, for you guys from the next weekend will be starting with the WebDriver part, right? So the first two are the demo sessions, so we are starting from scratch everything, right? So that's all guys in this session. I hope you guys have enjoyed it and not got bored, right? Yeah, I'll be uploading the recording soon. I'll be sharing it with everyone, so you can try going through it, and I'll gonna share you some of the core Java recordings as well, so just try going through that as well. Right. So for tomorrow's meeting invite, I've already sent it to everyone. I believe you all should have. If you don't have, then you can just send me a mail on trainer@way2automation.com. This is my official mail ID. So you can add me on this. Right. And see, Zoom, instead of Zoom, what I would recommend is TeamViewer. In case see, you're gonna get complete support in your queries. We're gonna have sessions over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and in case you are practicing, you'll be getting a lot of assignments that you have to finish it during the weekdays. And in case you are stuck with any doubts, any queries, any installation part, then just have this software installed on your machine. So once you have the software installed, it will look like this. This is a free software, and what you need to provide me with is this ID and password. So through this I can take a access of your machine remotely, and I can do the installation on your machine whenever you are stuck. You can add me on Skype. My Skype ID is Selenium Coaching. So Selenium Coaching. So just add me on Skype on this ID whenever you get stuck. So just ping me and we can schedule a time, and I'll help you with all the installation part. Right. And in tomorrow's session, we're going to talk about detailed syllabus and other things because we're already running out of time. It's quite late, right? Already we did more than 2 hours of a session. So tomorrow I'll be explaining you some new stuff as well related to Selenium and APM, and I'm going to show you that how why Selenium. We started with why Selenium is very popular, why not other automation tool. So this answer we're gonna look at it tomorrow, right? So thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot for joining, and like we're gonna meet tomorrow at the same time. Thank you, guys. Thanks, guys. Thank you.